Welcome back to Rich Words Music, where today we're looking at this. It's the Joyo BanTamp XL Meteor II amplifier. Now the BanTamp XL range is Joyo's newest, as of 2022, range of mini amplifiers with maximum amounts of features, especially when you consider the prices. Now at time of filming, it's late September 2022, the Meteor II will set you back around €150 or $180 in North America, so very, very affordable indeed. And at that price point, it's got a bunch of pretty cool features and sounds on offer that I think are going to be useful for many guitar players. Now with a name like Meteor, you'd be expecting higher gain tones, and the Meteor II is indeed a higher gain Marshall-esque sounding amplifier. What we're going to do in this video then is I will play it in as many different sounds, settings and styles as I can. But first I'm going to tell you about the specifications and features of the amplifier, and at the very end I'll go into a bit more detail about my opinions on having had the amp here at home for the past few months, my thoughts on whether it's going to be worth your money at the end of the day, so stick around for those. Let's dive first into those specifications and features then. So the Meteor II is a 20 watt hybrid amplifier. It has a 20 watt Class D power amp, and there is a single tube in the preamp. It's a 12AX7, so it's a tube hybrid amplifier. Now we have two channels on the Meteor II, clean and overdrive, which you can flick between by using this switch here, or the amp also comes with a free channel switching foot switch, which I think is a very cool feature for €150, that's for sure. Now as you can see, we've got 6 knobs on the front of the amp here, and you'll be pleased to know that the two channels have their own independent set of controls. They each have a gain, a tone and a volume knob, so that's very, very cool for having independent control of both channels. Over here on the right hand side we have the power switch, and over here on the other side you see one of the other cool features, that is a Bluetooth switch. That means that you can connect the Meteor II to your phone or to your computer via Bluetooth and play along to backing tracks or practice or use a metronome or a drum machine or whatever. It's just a lot of fun and another cool feature at this price point. If I flick us round to the back of the amplifier here, this is the Bluetooth antenna here on the one side. Next to that is where you plug the amplifier in, and the amp comes with a sort of laptop battery-esque 18-volt power supply. Make sure that you use the one that Joyo sent to you in the packaging. Next to that we have speaker outputs. You have a minimum of 8 ohms here on this speaker output port, and this amp, let me tell you, gets pretty loud considering it's only 20 watts. It pushes a lot of air. Next to that we have the foot switch port where you plug in the channel switching foot switch that comes with the amplifier, and next to that we have a headphones out, which is where you can plug in a set of headphones, and that lets you practice in total peace and quiet. Good for you, good for the neighbors too, I would suggest. And finally, on the opposite side of the amp, we have an effects loop. So there's a return and a send here, and what that lets you do is patch in effects like reverbs, delays, modulations, etc., and not have to run them straight into the front of the amplifier, which is another very good advantage for an amplifier, especially at this price point, I would suggest. So that is the Meteor II in the BanTamp XL range, and what we're going to do now is play it. So for today's playing part of the video, I shall be using 2 guitars. I'll be using my Fender Telecaster for single coil tones and my Epiphone Les Paul for humbucking sounds. We'll start off on the clean channel and do some cleaner stuff, and we'll gradually wind up the gain controls, do some rock and some punk and some heavier stuff, and see if the Meteor II can do a bit of metal as well. At the end of that playing part, I'll also plug in a couple of drive pedals. We'll run them into the clean channel of the amp and also into the overdrive channel and see if we can tighten it up for metal sounds even more, and see how it sounds with some low gain drives running into the clean channel. And at the very end, I've got my Harley Benton Duality reverb delay dual pedal, which you can see another video of there. We'll run that into the Meteor II's effects loop and see how this pedal is handled by the amp. And at the very, very end of the playing part, I'll do a loop on each of the 2 guitars, and we'll really get to twist the knobs on the amplifier and see to what extremes we can get the Meteor II. Enough talk, enough chat then. This is the BanTamp XL Meteor II by Joyo. Let's play it now, and we'll speak in more detail about it afterwards. Okay then, so that was the Joyo BanTamp XL Meteor II guitar amp head, and I hope you enjoyed the playing and the tones. And despite this being a mini head and despite it only having 3 controls for each of the 2 channels, there were a bunch of different tones to be had. And if you love higher gain Marshall-esque raw rock and roll goodness, then I think the Meteor II is definitely going to be one for you, because it does that and it does it in spades. Okay then, so I'm going to tell you now my opinions on the amplifier, and we'll start with those things that I do like. And that first thing is, of course, the sounds. This amp is actually immense amounts of fun to play. I wasn't really expecting that much from it when Joyo sent it to me, but as soon as I got it in, plugged in, switched onto the Overdrive channel with everything at 12 o'clock, I understood what they're going for with this amplifier. It does that Marshall thing. So if that's your bag, thick, pushed, mid-rangey, raucous rock and roll tones, hard rock, punk rock, alternative rock, and even a bit of old school metal, then you get it. No problem with the Meteor II. It's absolutely excellent for those kinds of sounds. Now, when it came to the clean channel, I do like it. I think it's quite nice and neutral sounding. Possibly some of you would say it's a little bit bland sounding, but I think it's a pretty decent clean channel, and it's also a very decent pedal platform, as you'll have heard in the short example where I plugged in the Greer Lightspeed Overdrive pedal. If you're someone who would be wanting really tight, modern, progressive metal tones out of the Meteor II, I would just recommend that you get something like a Tube Screamer and run that as a boost into the dirty channel of this amplifier, as I did in the One Sound sample, and you really get those tones straight away. So again, it's a very, very cheap and very, very simple amplifier, but many, many tones are to be had within, so I commend Joyo for that. There's plenty of other things that I like about the Meteor II as well. I mean, in terms of price, it's great. 150 euros or $180. That's very, very affordable indeed. The size is fantastic as well. You can carry it pretty much to any gig. It's about 1.3 kilograms, so under 3 pounds in American weight measurements. Very, very light to tote as well. I love the fact that you've got independent controls for the 2 channels. That just gives you extra flexibility over other amps where you have shared EQ and controls for those. I love the fact that there's headphones in, and I love the fact that you've got the Bluetooth option as well. It was very simple to connect the Bluetooth from my phone to the Meteor II and get jamming away with the drum beat, and I actually recorded a short clip of me doing that, which you can enjoy right now. And that's how simple it was to connect the Meteor II to my phone via Bluetooth. Otherwise, again, the fact that you have a channel switching foot switch for free included with the amp is fantastic, and I think that for the price, it's a really, really decent package in that regard. What about the things, though, that I don't quite like so much? Well, there are a couple of things that I personally would change if I were to be designing, let's say, the Meteor Edition Mark III that might be coming out in 2025 or whatever. Well, for me personally, I would start by putting built-in reverb into the amplifier. I'm someone who generally always likes to have just a little bit of room or plate reverb in the background just to fatten up my tones and give them a bit more atmospheric touch. So that's something I would definitely like to have. On the other hand, the Meteor II does take reverb pedals really well. It's just something that I'd like to see included within the amplifier itself. When it comes to the tonal settings and the EQ, I would also love to have a 3-band EQ if I could have it. The tone control on the Meteor is actually pretty good. It's quite flexible considering you only have 1 knob. But I did find on a few occasions that I was missing some of the frequencies that I would personally prefer. So for example, on some of the higher gain settings, I like to have the tone quite far up to get the amount of treble that I would need, but I then found I was missing a bit of low end. So if I had dedicated bass, mid and treble controls, I would be able to have a little bit more tonal control over the tones of the amp. And there probably would be a few more percentage points worth of better tones available with the amp if you did have a 3-band EQ. And the other thing that I'd change about the Meteor II would be giving it additional connectivity options for 2022. Now, this amplifier is great for plugging straight into a speaker, and it has a headphone out too, but what it doesn't have is a DI out that can let you connect it straight to an audio interface or a computer or a PA mixer, etc. And I know that a lot of people like to do that today, and that's actually how I record all of my videos as well. So what I had to do for this video was actually hook the Meteor II up to my audio interface via my Blue Guitar Blue Box virtual cab sim pedal. So that's not something that everyone will have options to do, and that is something that I think Joyo could change for future editions of this amp, just to make things one step easier for everybody who wants to get plugged in a 21st century sort of capacity. But those are the only things that I would change about this amplifier, and I think that it's really got a lot going for it. However, if you've been watching this video and you've been thinking, yep, I like the idea of this, but what are the other options out there for me at this price that give me similar options? Well, I would first off recommend checking out the rest of the Joyo BanTamp XL range. There's the Tweedy, as I've mentioned already, and I've got a video on that one up there if you'd like to watch it, which has more of a Fender flavor. There are other flavors of BanTamp XL amps too, and a bass amp as well, so you can check those out if you'd like to. But there are a bunch of other companies doing mini amps as well at mini price points too. You could start with something like the Hot Tone Legacy range, there's the Vox MV series, there's the Hughes & Kettner Spirit of amplifiers, then you've got things like the Boutique amp distribution range, which have really taken mini amps to a new level in recent years. They've got stuff like the Friedman BE Mini Head, again, which I have a video of there, which really does that hot-rodded Marshall sort of a thing at a great price, looks fantastic as well, so I really recommend checking those out too. And then of course you've got Marshall itself. For $100 or $150, euros or pounds more than the Meteor II, you might be able to find yourself a Marshall DSL-1 head, and those are fantastic bits of kit, so I would always recommend checking those out. And finally, if you've already got an amplifier which is decent as a pedal platform, then you could also consider just picking up a really good medium to high gain Marshall pedal, plugging that in, and you'll get similar tones to the Meteor II for that kind of money. So that's another great option. But at the end of the day, if you've got a Joyo dealer anywhere near you, I would thoroughly recommend that you head on down, plug in the Meteor II and see what it's all about, because for 150 euros or $180, I really think it's worth looking at. It's got 2 channels, clean and overdrive. They're both a lot of fun, particularly the overdrive channel. It does that dirty rock and roll Marshall thing, and at the end of the day, there's not a lot more that many guitar players actually want. I hope then that this video has answered all of the questions that you might have had about the Meteor II by Joyo, but if there's anything else you'd like to know, drop me a comment down there and I shall answer it to the best of my ability, and we'll get a little bit of a discussion going. And if you're still around, it would make my day if you'd give the video a like, or maybe even sub to the Rich Words music channel, because that always helps building the little community that we've got going on here. But that's been it for this video then. I've been Rich for Rich Words Music, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.